What's up, everybody? Welcome to The Revival. My name is JJ, and I want to know, are newer games getting too long? Alright, so, you know what? I actually thought I had done a video on this a while ago, and I guess I didn't, because it's something that I think about, like, constantly. So, MMOs. Big, huge, massive multiplayer online games, where basically the world is ever-changing, ever-evolving. The main reason that I stick to, like, one or two at a time, I've played a lot, but the main reason I always fall out of them, or only stick to like one or two, like the two big ones that I go back to are Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, I haven't even touched this new expansion, and I haven't played in probably maybe a year and a half. It's been a long time since I've played World of Warcraft. But Final Fantasy XIV I still do go back to occasionally, just because it's Final Fantasy. But the reason I don't is because those games are so massive and you have to invest so much time into this one single game. Granted, there's a ton to do and it's a blast, and if that's your thing, do it, sink your time into it. There's so much else out there that I want to experience, though. And I think this is also a big reason I'm a retro gamer, because those older games tend to be a lot shorter than newer games, and so I can, have these experiences and do it in a shorter amount of time and knock them off the backlog and not have to worry about, spending the next 2 months playing one single game. I'm noticing that a lot of single-player games are starting to get to that point. And I don't necessarily even mean like they release a game and it's just super long. Like it's 80 hours upon release. A lot of them are, which is insane. But then they'll throw in like DLCs and expansions and all this stuff. And I get that's to keep you involved and everything like that. But I just want to play more. Like, I want some variety. I want to do other things. It's because I like to finish games and get to the end and the story. Having a game that has, 80 hours of required content is just brutal. Like, that's daunting. And that makes me, that's a turnoff in some cases. It's just really, really unfortunate, because I know there's games out there that, especially being an RPG fan, man, like there's so many games that I've put off because it's like I have to psych myself out for this because there's going to be so much to do. Perfect example, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. When I first got it was pretty close to release. I put it in like the second or third day after I bought it, and I started playing it. I got in about 5 minutes, walked out of that, and those of you who played it know what I'm talking about. You walk out of that initial cave, walked out, looked around, and I literally was like, I can't. And I turned it off, and I didn't go back to it for another 2 or 3 months. Because I knew it was going to take up so much time. I knew there was going to be so much to do, and that I wasn't going to be able to focus on anything else. I'm jealous of, like Adrian and I have had this conversation on Pixel Perspective, where he is able to play multiple games at the same time and not lose track of what's going on. And so I envy people who can do that. But for me, I have like a one-track mind when it comes to games and my focus, which is odd because in my head I have 1,000 different thoughts going on at the same time. So I don't know, it's weird. But like when it comes to playing games, I just want to be sucked into one world and be into that world until I finish the main story. And the problem is there's so much padding in a lot of these games. There's so much like stuff that basically I would love to see these games retain their length. Like, I am all for it, because I know there's tons of people out there who love these long games and love being able to spend, 80, 100 hours, 150 hours plus on a single player experience, with new content coming out all the time. I know there's people who love that, and I can totally appreciate that. I respect it. I think it's awesome. For me, I would love to see like main storylines and that kind of thing maybe shorten a little bit, and just like pad the extra padding, the optional content, make it optional. That make no sense at all. But the stuff that could be optional, make it optional. Don't make it required. Does that make sense? I feel like there's so many like games that just try to get that length, and so they make the player do these optional things in order to just like add a few hours to the game, when it's like, did I really have to do that in the overall scheme of things? You know, and I realize that a lot of this is pertaining mostly to like RPGs and story-related games and that kind of thing. And that, you know, that makes sense because those are the ones that have like the complete storyline and the main as one of the main focuses of the game. You're playing like a Call of Duty or something like that. Are you really like super invested into the single player campaign? I would be when I play, because I actually genuinely like playing those. But most gamers, I don't think even care like if there's padding or if the game is long or short or anything like that. But for somebody like me who likes these RPGs and stuff like that, like I don't need a 120-hour single player game. Give me like, for me, a good length on an RPG is like 30 to 40 hours, and that's pushing it. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I love, like, Super Nintendo RPGs and stuff like that. You're talking, like, 20, 25 hours in a lot of cases. And it's just enough. And usually there was a lot of extra additional stuff that you could do on the side if you wanted to. And I think that's where the disconnect is. I think there's just too much padding in these games, which makes these games way longer and feel like more of a chore in some cases. Whereas I would love to just be able to do what I want to do. If I'm not enjoying gameplay, but I can deal with it because I really like the story, I will sit through and continue that game. Perfect example, Xenoblade Chronicles, the original. I was not a fan of the combat. I said this in a recent video. I was not a fan of the combat at all. I thought it was too slow and just boring and not my thing. But I really liked the story, and God, that game was gorgeous. So I wanted to keep going, I wanted to explore, I wanted to finish it. But it was so long, and there was so much side content, and there was so much stuff in there that just I didn't feel needed to be in there. And I'm even like chalking that up to some of the characters that are in the story that didn't need to be in there. It's just, there's so much padding that gets added to these games that I really wish they would just cut it back a little bit and you know, just focus on, make the story, make it just have everything be like relevant to the main story, and then just branch it out from there. Don't like be like, all right, we're going to be saving the world and doing this thing. Oh, this kid needs 3 apples from the store. We're going to make you do that to get it to go bring it to him. It's like, why this makes no sense. Why am I'm trying to save the world. I don't need to go get apples for this kid. Like, I know that's a terrible example, but it is an example. It's just, you know what I'm getting at. So I'm curious, what do you guys think? Do you think, am I completely off my rocker? Does it matter? Like, are games not getting too long? Are they just as, you know, as like, do they need to be evolving and becoming longer because people are spending more time in front of the TV gaming? Because against that, I would argue, well, there's tons more games now that people might be missing out because the games are too long. It's just, what are your thoughts? What do you think about game length nowadays? I'm curious, especially those of you who grew up, you know, in the era that I did with NES, Super NES, PlayStation, that kind of thing. Because those were manageable in my eyes. Not that these new ones aren't manageable, but they're less manageable because they're such a time sink. And they're just becoming more and more like MMOs in regards to, Final Fantasy 15, that's another one. How many DLCs and like additional things did they throw on there to keep the players involved and stuff like that? The good thing is that was all optional. You didn't have to do it. It wasn't part of the main story. So I'm all on board with that. But there's just so much content they're throwing at these games. And when they don't make it optional, that's frustrating. And that's just like, yeah. Anyways, so tell me what your thoughts are. I'm curious. I would love to see a conversation about this because I want to hear what other people think. If it's even a big deal to other people, and maybe it's just me who thinks that, and everybody else is like, "Suck it up, Buttercup." It's fine. Anyways, thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate it. And as always, keep on gaming.